Abby Shapiro is someone whose content I've never watched. I have watched some people responding to her content before, but I myself personally have not watched any Classically Abby. So it's a little 6-minute video, not terrible, and I thought maybe we would watch it. So let's like flippy flop over here and see what Classically Abby content is like.
Classic crew, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about why you should not be ashamed to be pro-life. I think we live in an era where being pro-life is something you can't talk about openly, as if being pro-choice is more acceptable. And I'm here to tell you,
yeah, it is more acceptable to be pro-choice. Being pro-life is real dumb. And keeping in mind, everybody, that this video is coming out as Roe v. Wade is being just like openly and directly threatened at the federal actual Supreme Court level, you know? Like, this is not a good time to be like, being pro-life is good, actually.
Tell you that it is not. If you have followed my channel for a while, you know that I am very openly pro-life, and it is something I'm very passionate about. So today I want to tell you why you don't have to feel bad about being pro-life, even in today's climate, because at the end of the day, being pro-life is the only position that makes sense. So let's get
oh, goodness gracious. Oh, wow, let's do it. And keeping in mind also that the Shapiros are Jewish, a religion where abortion is actually mandatory if the life of the parent is threatened by the pregnancy. Keeping that in mind. Oh, I don't actually know. Did this come out after the... It came out May 12, so I think it might have come out like literally right after the leak. Don't be ashamed to think that half the population should be forced to carry a parasite for 9 months, ending with the worst pain of their life. People don't understand. Like, your life is at... Like, your life is at risk throughout the pregnancy and in childbirth and afterward. It's insane, the expectation that you be forced to... And not only that, but like, your body can permanently change. Like, your body usually permanently changes. This is body horror. I was freaked out by it. A person had lost some of their teeth, and when they finally like revealed why, it was because they didn't have enough calcium in their diet when they were pregnant, and the baby just like stole the calcium from their teeth to build its bones.
Number one, it follows the science. We all know that life begins at conception.
Do we?
There's no other time in the development of a fetus, in the development of a baby, that you could arbitrarily decide is when life begins.
In the Bible, it's when the baby takes its first breath outside the womb. Actually, no, in the Bible, I think it's when, like, you can't sell a baby as a person until it's a month old. So there's actually like a couple different answers in the Bible.
It has to begin at the beginning, when the sperm and the egg meet. Trying to come up with any other time in the lifespan of a baby makes no sense. You can say that it's viability, which is what Roe v. Wade tried to do. And the fact of the matter is, as science gets better and better, viability changes, as well as the fact that what does viability even mean? A baby, when it is born, cannot do anything by itself. It is not real.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. A baby just on its own is not viable. True. Just make the argument for expanding abortion into age 5.
Really viable. So what are we talking about here? It doesn't make any sense.
But seriously though, like, sorry, Miss Abby, if I hand you a human baby and I give you, I'm like, here, hold this baby for me in this hand, and I hand you a petri dish with a disgusting, freakish, not actually breathing yet 12-week fetus. If I was holding these out and I went to drop one, if I went to drop them, you would definitely grab the baby first. You know, like, if I went to like throw them into the incinerator, you would not save the fetus, right? Like, you would not... You can't even distinguish fetuses from each other species-wise. Like, a pig fetus looks like a human fetus early enough. Saying when does life begin is already ceding the argument. Of course, a fetus is a life. I don't care. It's not a person. I think even Gayfesh, I go even further having this discussion, like, you know, God bless Abby Thorne for her video about abortion, because I will even grant that it's a person. I don't even think that it's worth it to argue whether the fetus is a person. I'll grant that point, and then we're talking about who has the right to do what with someone else's body. We already have the framework for convicting people for crimes that they committed unknowingly. So it's not like the fetus committing a violation against the person it's inside of being unknowing in doing so makes it not doing something that is a violation worthy of lethal self-defense on the part of the pregnant person. That's the like legal argument that I'm more interested in making at this point. Because like, yeah, there are refutation points to each and every one of the things that she's going to say, but it doesn't really make sense to be arguing really why or like at what point does being alive become a factor. Like it's just a question of like, is that even a factor? Do we consider it? Is it to me non-factor? I want front row seats at the court case for aborting in self-defense. It is ultimately, but I don't know. We'll see if that argument ever makes it to a courtroom. I'm not a lawyer.
Sense scientifically to be pro-choice. Being pro-choice is based on your feelings. It's, I don't want this baby, therefore I can get rid of it. It isn't a life.
It's not usually don't want in most cases. Like in most cases, it's like I can't. The majority of people who get abortions in the United States, as far as I'm aware, are people who are already parents. We're not talking about situations where people simply don't want another child or simply don't want a child. We're talking majority people who are just financially incapable of supporting a child. And it's usually financially unable to support another child, or situations where someone is in the process of trying to get away from their abusive partner who is sabotaging their birth control and they get pregnant on their way out of the relationship. You know, like the number of situations in which it's like, it's not just because they want to. And like, to be clear, if you just want to have an abortion, you should be able to get one. Just the objective facts are that the majority of them are situations in which it's not just a flippant choice. And it's usually not a flippant choice in any situation. It's a serious medical procedure, you know? It's not just not a big deal. Plus, there are so many situations where solid social safety nets and welfare systems just don't exist, and they would have the kid if those support systems were there, but Republicans don't want those. Yeah. How are you going to have a job if you get pregnant off of a transient relationship and you're on your own and you get pregnant? Like, what are you going to do about childcare if childcare is $12 an hour and you only make $10 an hour? What are you supposed to do? There's nothing you can do in that situation. All right, let's go over back to here.
To me, because it's not something that I chose or that I wanted at this time. That isn't science. Science is a sperm and an egg.
I mean, abortion is science. Like, it's pretty scientific. It's at least very good engineering at the very minimum.
Egg meet, create a zygote, and from that meeting, we can grow life. It is...
You can. Also, the overwhelming majority of the time, miscarriage happens, so...
Absolutely, unabashedly, the most scientific argument to be pro-life. And I feel like that's a pretty easy argument to make. I mean, people may say that it isn't...
It's just, yeah, like, okay, so I have a mole growing on my body, and it's cancerous, but it's alive, so having it removed is murder. That's like the equivalent argument that you're making here.
Into life until it can feel, until it has a heartbeat, until it is any of the things that they want to decide, like I said, arbitrarily makes it alive. But those are arbitrary. Life begins when life begins, and that is at conception. Number two is...
It's just like, why is that relevant though? She doesn't like explain why that's a relevant factor. She just says that is when life begins. And I'm like, okay, I grant that argument. Why does it matter?
Is that being pro-life means being consistent. It's so paradoxical when a pro-choice person says that it's not a life when they want to abort the baby, when the baby doesn't fit in with their plans, or they're unprepared, or whatever other reason they may have for...
Yeah, tell me that you've never been insecure about where your next meal is going to come from without telling me that you've never been insecure about where your next meal is going to come from. Just being like, oh, if they were just unprepared or whatever other reason they may have for wanting an abortion, like, what are you going to, like, how are you going to minimize poverty this time, Abby?
Or wanting to abort their child. But if they have a miscarriage, it was a baby and they can mourn that child. Now, I'm not saying that someone who's pro-choice doesn't have the right to mourn their child. Absolutely they do, because it's natural, because it's their baby.
Oh, also, like, a person can be pro-choice and also against abortion for themselves personally. So just because a person is pro-choice doesn't mean that they are the kind of person who would get an abortion themselves. They're just saying, like, I think that a person should have the right to choose. Sometimes you'll have a person, when you ask, like, are you pro-life or pro-choice, and they'll say, like, oh, I'm pro-life, but I think other people should be able to do what they want. Like, well, then you're not pro-life, you are pro-choice. You are pro everyone getting a choice, you know?
Baby that they lost. As someone who had a miscarriage, I would not hold that against anyone. But my point here is that you don't get to choose what makes a life have worth. Just because you didn't want the baby at this point doesn't make that baby any less worthy.
That is an emotional argument. Like, she was like, this is about science and not about emotions. Being pro-choice is such an emotional argument. And then now she's saying, like, this baby is worthy, and it's not up to you to get to decide that this baby is not worthy of a life. You know? Like, it's pretty ridiculous.
Of living than the baby that you did want that you miscarried. It's inconsistent, it's paradoxical, it doesn't make any sense. Why would a miscarried baby be something you can mourn over? Why is it a baby as opposed to the baby that you didn't want, and therefore...
I don't think that this hypothetical person is a real thing. Like, I think she's alluding to maybe like someone, like one person might have this experience and another pro-choice person might have this experience, and she's just like acting as though they're the same actual person though. And I don't like that a person would mourn a miscarriage and then go turn around and have an abortion and not mourn that one just as much.
Isn't a baby to you. Being pro-life means that you recognize that a baby's a baby no matter what you wanted, no matter if it was planned, no matter how it came about. Number 3 is being pro-life means being pro-woman. You will be told that being pro-life means that you are anti-woman because you are taking away women's choices.
Cannot wait for this one.
Being pro-life means that you are protecting the lives of women in the womb. Women in the womb are aborted at much higher rates than men in the womb. So you are...
That is such a creepy, weird phrasing. Why would you say that? Why would you say women in the womb and men in the womb? Like, that just makes me imagine, like, I'm imagining like a person is pregnant and there's just like a G.I. Joe inside of their body. Like, why? I'm so upset right now.
Are protecting the lives of those who cannot speak for themselves, of those women who cannot speak for themselves. Women in the womb have rights too, and we as pro-life people defend those rights, defend the right to live. Last but
I am in pain.
Not least, being pro-life is the compassionate position. Often we are told that being pro-life means that
I can definitely make an argument against this. Oh, that's going to be fun.
We don't care about the women who are in bad situations or who get pregnant and aren't ready to be mothers. But how is it compassionate to tell a woman who has gotten into a situation she wasn't prepared for that she should abort her child, that she should not be a mother, that she's not ready to be a mother, that she's not worthy of being a mother, instead of offering her the help and support she needs? Pro-life groups do that. Pregnancy.
Oh, do you? Do you actually? Let me see Abby Shapiro. Let's look through her channel. I'm not going to because it would be a waste of time. Let's look through Abby Shapiro's channel and see how many times she supports publicly funded childcare, or what she is like. Does she have a Twitter? What is she doing right now? What is she saying right now about is she saying anything right now about the formula shortage? Is she lobbying? Is she sending money? Is she buying formula and distributing it with all that money that she has? Like, what is she doing right now to support mothers, to support children and support babies? Like, the answer is she's not doing anything, because that's not what the actual goal is. The actual goal is to keep women as a subservient breeding class, and anyone who happens to have the same organs.
Pregnancy centers provide help to women, to mothers, so that they can bear their children and have help. The fact of the matter is that being pro-life...
No, those weird pregnancy crisis centers actually make everything worse. If you are seeking an abortion, they will try to drag you out. Like, they will drag the process along until you legally can't get one in your state. Like, they will trick you, lie to you about what services they'll provide. until it's too late for you to legally get an abortion where you live. There was literally a story of an abortion doctor calling up a crisis pregnancy center going, hey, it's clear this patient doesn't want an abortion, but she can't afford to raise a baby. Can y'all help her out? And they were like, help her with what? I remember that. God, it's so cringe.
Life means being compassionate because we provide women with the help that they need to do a task that they may not have been ready for, rather than tell them, you're right, you are too weak to do this, you can't have this child.
Like, life-threatening situation. Oh my God. Like, you, Abby Shapiro, have had a baby now. Like, I guess you were able to afford the good childcare, and you're white, so no one was like ignoring your dangerous blood pressure or whatever it is that Black pregnant women die of so often. I just can't imagine being like, giving birth to a child is no big deal. It freaks me out constantly. I'm like, I can't, like, the changes that will happen to my body are irrevocable, and I don't know if I can psychologically handle it.
You might as well kill it. Being pro-life is compassionate not only to the baby, but to mothers as well. And being pro-life means supporting women so that they can be the mothers they were born to be. I hope you guys enjoy.
Gross. Oh, that's so gross. Oh, I'm done watching the video. I'm not going to watch the end of the video because it was really gross. That's the fundamental thing. That's the fundamental thing, is that they really truly believe that if you are born with a womb, that your entire purpose in the world is to someday shove a baby out of your vagina. Like, yeah, the women they were born to, the mothers they were born to be, exactly, Void Spaghetti Girl. Like, it's literally just breeding stock. Exactly. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's really gross. I don't know what I expected from watching a Classically Abby video, but it was bad, and I regret every moment of it. This video was brought to you by my patrons, all my donators really, but today I want to especially shout out Mersh Rolvog, Maurice Taylor, Tiago Nascimento, Jovian F. Gaudreau, Bean, Shenanigans, Amanda B., Heather Clarkson, R. Halverson, Decoy Duck, Sarah A., Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Athiette, Nova, Frozen Summers, Suzanne Maynard, Elizabeth Bartell, and Mr. Atheist.